I'm Michele Roberts, and I'm originally from Wilmington, Delaware, now residing in Washington, D.C. My life in Wilmington, Delaware was very interesting. Wilmington, Delaware is known as the first state, but we also have a name for ourselves, known as the chemical capital of the world, land of DuPont, General Chemical, Ciba-Geigy, Hercules, and all other kind of Superfund sites and everything you want to think of. When I was growing up, you could literally see the pollution in my state. It was so bad in elementary school in the 60s. We could smell the fumes from the tannery coming up the hill, not down the hill. There were also schools located next to those tanneries down the hill. Elementary schools where my friends went to learn and play. 40 years later, those students are now sick with all types of cancers, asthma, you name it, they have it. In Delaware, there are high rates of childhood infant mortality. In fact, among African Americans, they rank very high across the nation. Also in my former state of Delaware, there are very high cancer rates, very high heart disease rates, all of which my family has been subjected to. My family, the Roberts, the Dickersons, the Johnsons, the Lamberts, all have been subjected to various forms of cancer. My mother's family is a great example, the Dickerson family. My mother sleeps with a breathing machine. She has sleep apnea, but my mother lived in a neighborhood that was surrounded by DuPont Company, tanneries, the wet garbage incinerator, and oh, by the way, the garbage incinerator over in Southbridge, which at that time was the, and still is, the public housing project. There was a waste incinerator there that I later learned while in graduate school, that when they put that waste incinerator online, it never worked properly, and they knew it. And so this incinerator ran for, I think, well over 25 years and never worked properly. So you wonder why there are high asthma rates? That's one of your reasons. My mother's family, as I say, the Dickersons, had all sorts of cancers. My Aunt Marita died from urethral cancer. Her husband, Charles White, died from brain cancer. My mother's mother, my grandmother, Pauline Dickerson, died when my mother was 16 from bladder cancer. Her sister died from also bladder cancer. I've had aunts that died from breast cancer. You name the cancers, we've had it in my family. My brother has heart disease. He has a defibrillator box in him. I have respiratory issues myself. My father has respiratory issues. Fortunately, my father lived in and out of Wilmington as he was growing up. So he lived between Delaware and Indiana. And as he said, that was his safe haven to keep him from being sick. My father told me that every woman on his block on Townsend Court in Southbridge died of some type of cancer now when he thinks about it. Every woman on his block. In Delaware, there are, to this day, facilities that have high releases of dioxins. One facility that I can call to name is the DuPont Edgemoor Company. And as a result, facilities such as DuPont Edgemore, General Chemical, and all others have been responsible for my family and my friends being subjected to all types of health disparities. My very best friend, Darlene Grimes, right now, a 52-year-old woman diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was one that worked out every day and lived an organic lifestyle. But she did one thing wrong. She grew up in an environmental justice neighborhood, and her hair salon is also in that same neighborhood. You want to know my story and how I got into this activism role? It began with my own family. But one thing in addition to that is that I started as an environmental scientist. Over 20 years ago, I learned to protect the wetlands. I learned that the wetlands were good to us. I learned that the wetlands served as a tool to help us with adverse weather patterns. Fast forwarding on in my career, I then began to work with environmental toxins. Working as a regulator, as an environmental scientist for local government, I was able to see how our laws, our environmental regulations, really do not protect human health. And beyond that, does not really address and protect the environment. So what does that mean? That means it takes us to today, where I serve as a campaign and policy coordinator for Advocates for Environmental Human Rights, an organization that is headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana, and a campaign and policy office in Washington, D.C., where I am based. At Advocates for Environmental Human Rights, we work to uphold the human right to health. And you know, that's why I joined that organization. Because when I think about what happened to my family, and as I left Delaware coming to Washington, D.C., I wanted to make a difference in this world so that people talk about future generations. Well, I would like to say, as a black woman, you know, I don't have that privilege to talk about preserving the future generations in my family. Because the current generation, the present generation of my family are being wiped out. And so that said, I wanted to make a difference in this world. And in making a difference in this world, I work with communities. I serve communities to try to advance their issues into the global arena, making sure that our U.S. government protects that of the human right to health. And beyond that, looking at the globe, how it is we protect Mother Earth, this fragile island being that we all live on, our fragile island home. I came to Copenhagen, to the climate treaty negotiations, and I truly believe that God sent me here. Because, you know, we must heal this land. The only way that we can heal the earth is to take drastic measures. I believe that it will take a fundamental grassroots effort, hands reaching hands, hearts reaching hearts, to get people to understand that actually climate is not a negotiable item. We are here at what's called the climate treaty negotiations, but I would like to say the human right to health, the human right to environment, the human right to life is not negotiable. That's my